Hello, Iris J here with Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I hope this video finds you doing well. I am here today there's a tiny bit of light out there and this threshold on this day as the sun is going down. And I wanted to make a video about the solstice energies that we are coming into during December. So I am in the northern hemisphere. So here we're coming into winter solstice. And so if you are in the southern hemisphere, you're working with that opposite energy of coming into summer. And I think part of the reason I really wanted to put this video out a little bit early is the holiday season. The holiday season can be wonderful and full of all different types of gifts, and it can also be tender. It can be full of grief. It can be full of sudden waves of intense emotions, especially if we come from complicated family histories, which so many of us do. As we enter into December, the body can start having some tensions. I am sorry. I just am aware that there's a cat that likes to play with flames as I'm kind of invoking some of this threshold energy. So I just have to keep an eye on her. That is sweet Nikita. And I know for myself, I do come from one of those backgrounds where holidays can be tender and full of all confusing types of emotions, let alone dynamics and experiences. And so for myself, connecting to the solstice energy and really coming into ritual around the energies of the earth and what's coming in the cosmos can be incredibly grounding. So I wanted to put this out a little bit earlier. Just gonna move Nikita and just go over the key energies that we can be working with in solstice. And I really like to do solstice readings in terms of this glimpse of the energy that is taking us into the next season, into the next few months. And then that also, as we know, brings us through this threshold into 2024. We are in the period of thresholds. And so let's look at some of these energies. So when we're talking about solstice, we're talking about when the sun enters into the sign of Capricorn. So it leaves Sagittarius, it comes into Capricorn. That is on December 21st. Where I am on the west coast of Canada, it's at 7:27 p.m. in the evening. And so the sun comes into Capricorn, and this marks our solstice. And so again, in the northern hemisphere, this is bringing us into the darkest day of the year. And so traditionally we work with this as bringing us into this season that marks an internal drive. This is heightened, this solstice, because of some of the aspects that the sun has. And so even if we're in the southern hemisphere and we're coming into the summer, and you're coming into your longest day, there is still a very reflective energy that marks this threshold that we really want to work with intentionally. And part of that is that as the sun comes into Capricorn, it is conjunct Mercury, who is retrograde. Mercury is retrograde for the end of 2023, and it is moving from Capricorn back into Sagittarius. The dates of Mercury's retrograde are December 12th through to January 1st or 2nd, depending upon where you are. And so this solstice brings us into this next season with the sun conjunct Mercury retrograde. And so we know that when Mercury is retrograde, this is a time of reflection. This is a time of going within, and it is retrograde in Capricorn, and then it's going to go back into Sagittarius. And so what is Capricorn? Capricorn is earth energy. Capricorn is, in its ultimate archetype, it is a deep yin reflective energy that is almost attuned to this ancient sacred rhythm that knows the ebbing and flowing of boundaries between the known and the unknown. That's kind of its core archetype. And then boundaries between what is needed and what is not needed for us, for ourselves, for our own bodies, for the earth, for social organization. Capricorn has a deep wisdom about it. It's also a sign that is part of making things real. Capricorn has incredible endurance. Capricorn is a sign that if we have a lot of Capricorn in our chart, we usually know how to work in a certain way. It is aligned with social systems and organizations. And so at this moment of solstice, at this moment in the northern hemisphere of us coming into the darkest day of the year, there is this very reflective energy with the sun asking us to quiet, asking us to maybe not work so hard, asking us to come in and listen to the sacred wisdom which is within ourselves, because Capricorn, ultimate archetype of Capricorn, is the wise woman that lives alone in the mountains, and she is one with her environment. People journey to her to get advice, to get healing. She works with the plant medicine, she works with animals, she's one with the shifting cycles of nature. And this is an archetype that I think this solstice is really inviting us into, and it's really inviting us into that inner sanctuary of deep earth wisdom, also for healing, because this sun, the solstice sun, is opposite Vesta. It's opposite Vesta, who is also retrograde, and she is up there, and she will be at the 29th degree of Gemini when the sun moves into Capricorn. And so she has been making her own retrograde journey from Cancer back into Gemini. And Vesta is our sacred hearth. She is the goddess of the sacred hearth, the sacred fires within. She is also our sacred sexuality. She is a connection between us, our body, our own creative gifts that are absolutely connected to our sexuality, and the goddess. She is an aspect of us that is between us and the goddess, an aspect of our sexuality as a creative being that is between us and the goddess, that actually no other person, she's a flame that no other person or even situation or history, that flame that's burning behind me, it's within us and it can't be put out. And so she's just starting this new cycle of her retrograde in Gemini, which is asking us to become quite mindful about our own sacred needs, our own sacred creative flame within ourselves in a way that can offer healing. And so she's also in the sign of Gemini, which is connected with Mercury as well. So there's a lot of these layers of reflective healing coming at a time when society traditionally asks us to become quite social, to go to parties, to go to those holiday parties, to show up for work, to show up for family, to show up in all these different ways. And so I do think that part of this energy happening at solstice, and this again is leading us into the Cancer new full moon, which is going to be on December 27th. We might say no to some of those parties this year. We might choose a quiet evening with a loved one or a friend or ourself or an animal. We might journal. We might need extra time alone, especially at the beginning of the shift into the new season, at this threshold of solstice. And if we cultivate that for ourselves, if we create the space that we just listen, what do I need? What do I really need right now? And if it is to be quiet or to create a certain situation that lets us be reflective, there could be quite a bit of healing that can come through that time. And then Mercury will continue its retrograde and it will go into Sagittarius, and that's kind of a different retrograde energy that we're going to be working with in that later part of after solstice coming into January. And we really can ask ourselves just what we need. And that is a question that solstice is bringing us into, and it's a question that we'll probably want to return to throughout the new year as we move into this new season. One other aspect of this solstice that I wanted to mention is that Mercury, who's retrograde, is also in almost an exact trine with Saturn. Saturn, who is in Pisces, who's direct in Pisces, and Saturn, who's associated with Capricorn. So we have another layer coming through here. And with that, there's, Saturn is going through Pisces, and it is helping us to really come into a whole new cycle. Then Saturn's going to start its new cycle through Aries once it finishes being in Pisces. But before that, Saturn is cleaning up some parts of our psyche's realms in the Pisces part of our chart. And so you might want to see where Saturn is landing in that first part of Pisces in your chart. What do you have in the first part of Pisces, so that might be also aligned with where we need to reflect, where we need to quiet ourselves. And there's this kind of little symphony going on between that Saturn, the symphony of layers between Saturn in Pisces, that sun who's just come into Capricorn, and then we're working with this opposite, that Vesta, who's at the final degree of Gemini in retrograde, and that Mercury in the first stages of Capricorn, who's retrograde. So there's just so much energy here asking us to get quiet, listen to the earth, listen to what the energy of the earth is calling for you, because in doing that, we're accessing that Capricorn archetype of that wise medicine woman, and she alone can give us healing. But she working with Vesta who's retrograde, who wants to slow down and really find what practices, what thoughts, what imaginings, what visions. Maybe it's a time to let ourselves dream instead of going out into the world and being really, really productive. We could just kind of come into what dreams are healing for us and what opens us to healing. And this is some of the energy that this solstice threshold is really inviting us to work with. And all of that is happening as we enter this very often busy, noisy season that is December and the shift into the new year. So just some energies to be mindful of and to be inviting, especially if you're someone that does solstice rituals. This is energy you really want to invite Vesta into your solstice rituals, and I'll probably have another video on that. And with that, I leave you. Take care.